Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, thank you all very much for your service to our country. General Noart, I wanted to come back to the issue of air sovereignty for just a moment. And in your prepared testimony, you discussed the impact that retiring legacy fighters will have on air sovereignty operations and highlight the importance of continuing planned recapitalization programs. According to a GAO report released in January, even under F-22 and F-35 fielding schedules, an air sovereignty alert fighter gap will exist by the year 2015. Added to this, the GAO report states that the Air Force has requested the Secretary of Defense's approval to accelerate the retirement of over 300 F-15s and F-16s in the FY10 budget, many of which are performing alert duties. If approved, retiring these aircraft earlier than is currently planned will likely begin affecting air sovereignty alert operations in the near term. And I guess my question is, do you agree with the GAO's findings that by 2015, some of the units that are currently performing air sovereignty alert operations will no longer have aircraft with which to perform that mission?
Senator, thank you for the question. The GAO report took a good hard look at the air sovereignty mission, both from the operator standpoint, our perspective, and the service provider's perspective. I think that their point is well taken, that if we don't make some clear decisions now, that we will see a gap out there in the future, given the current sustained role of air sovereignty missions. I've made the strong case that that level should continue for the foreseeable future, and I think and have support from the Department to continue that mission. Given that, then, we have to build some bridge strategies that will allow for us to ensure that the basic requirements for this mission are met. But as a joint service activity, I can pull that from a variety of different possible service providers. Certainly the Navy has a capability, as do the Marines, as well as the Air Force. The Air Force is working very aggressively to build that strategy. We are being very supportive of them in terms of the key requirements for air sovereignty to continue in the future. And I think we still have a little work to do in terms of having a firm plan to sustain this over time. I mentioned earlier to Senator Chambliss, I think there's a bridge capacity that needs to be created, and General Schwartz and his team are working on that now. Until I see the results of that, I'd be careful to be too definitive in an assessment at this point, Senator.
Do you foresee units that currently don't have a full-time alert mission, say, for example, like the South Dakota Air National Guard, picking up a full-time alert mission in order to mitigate that fighter gap? Is going to some of the Guard units a possibility?
Yeah, Senator, I think absolutely. As we get a better sense of what that recapitalization line will look like, whether it is refreshing existing aircraft, upgrading radars and the like on existing aircraft, or procuring new, there will also be a discussion, I think, on moving this mission around to a variety of units. And certainly we have done that, for example, as Ellington Air Force Base drew down its F-16 missions, we relied on Tulsa and other units to come in and fill that gap. So certainly we will continue to meet the requirement, and that's the bottom line for us. We're comfortable with any of our Guard units. It requires some training, but we can do that and have them pick up the mission as it may be required.
Yeah. Well, as I'm sure you know, we would love to continue to have a discussion with you about that, where South Dakota is concerned. Admiral, question for you regarding the January 22nd, 2009 executive order to close the detention facilities at Guantanamo Bay within 1 year, in which the President also ordered an immediate review of all of those detention facilities, and the review, I think, mandated certain participants be included, one of which was the Attorney General, who is responsible for coordinating the review, as well as the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, among others. Additional review participants can be designated by the Attorney General. As the regional combatant commander responsible for the military's JTF in Guantanamo, you have valuable firsthand expertise on how dangerous some of these detainees are and the requirements for their proper disposition. I guess my question is, has the Attorney General requested you or any of your subordinates to take part in the administration's review of all Guantanamo detentions?
He has not asked me personally. Attorney General Holder came down almost immediately upon taking office and spent a great deal of time on the ground in Guantanamo Bay. He had very detailed discussions with the two-star admiral who's down there. I think he has a full sight picture, and we stand ready to answer any questions that are posed via the Secretary.
Could you, in your knowledge of those discussions that were held, provide any details about perhaps dealing with the proposal that might transfer Gitmo detainees into facilities in the United States? Are you familiar with the discussions to
No,
that
sir.
level of detail?
No, sir. And those are not really in my purview. Those, my job is to provide humane, transparent, and legal care to the detainees, and we do that every day in accordance with Common Article 3 of the Geneva Convention, the Detainee Treatment Act, which is U.S. law, and we'll continue to do that, but the disposition is outside of my purview.
Okay. And I compliment you on what the treatment that you do provide, and I think it's everything I understand is very good. In terms of all the things that detainees are permitted to do, the way that they're cared for, the opportunities they have to worship, and everything else. I think the issue is that over the course of this next year, and this study is completed, that will concern many members of Congress is if, in fact, they are not housed or stationed at Guantanamo, what will be the alternative, and would that entail putting them somewhere here in the United States? And there are a couple of bases in particular that have been mentioned, both of which I think the delegations from those states would find objectionable. But as you perhaps know, there was a vote in the Senate last year, a 94-3 vote, that not be a solution. And so as this process plays out, to the degree that you are apprised of what's happening and could share any details about that with this committee, there will be a very high level of interest, I can assure you, in the Congress about that. So thank you, Admiral. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.